Camera number 275 of 365 is, for me, a long-awaited arrival. It's a camera I've tried to obtain but not been very successful up until now. The Canon T90. So feature-rich and laden down, it's can't even hold itself up. Actually, it's just the lens, really. If we take the lens off, it'll be fine. It's you can clearly see from the design where Canon were going with this. They were obviously preparing themselves for the EOS range, because the Canon T90 evidently is the last of the manual focus T range, and certainly I'm very pleased to see its arrival. So just running through the features, it's obviously a camera requires batteries to operate, and they're housed in the bottom of the built-in grip, which obviously adds to its heft. So we just simply undo the door, and four AA batteries. You can see some silver foil. The metal in between is obviously corroded, and initially I thought the camera wasn't working, but it was after that inclusion. So a little tip there. So we place the batteries and put that in. So the lens that I used to take the photographs was the Canon FD 50mm 1.8 lens, and it's a breech lock lens, so we just undo the breech. There we go. It can take FL lenses, and as a result of that you can use the stop down lever, which locks into place so that when you use the lens it obviously stops down immediately. Turn the aperture ring. We have a little self-timer light that illuminates. I presume that's the self-timer light. And that's pretty much it on the front of the camera. So let's just put the lens back on because I can't show all the features. The red button, there we go. Oops. So, to turn the, oops, need to turn that off. Yes, just one note to user actually. When we mount our lens, we shouldn't keep the stop down lever in. It will cause the camera to malfunction. So, need to turn that off when we put an FD lens. So, to turn the camera on, we have obviously our lock button and our on button. And then while we're here, we can choose our ISO. The camera does feature DX coding. Let's just lift that up. I have noticed this eye cup rather gets in the way of the door. So there is DX coding, but we can choose our own ISO, which is nice to include. And then we have exposure compensation button, and a rather mysterious, if we press both of those, we have a safety shift button, which is to do with a program used in the Canon that helps to make sure that the exposure is correct, essentially, without going into too much detail. So we've turned the camera on, and we can see that we're in program mode. So this camera basically takes the, when the lens is set to a green or auto, the camera basically is a point and shoot. The camera makes all the decisions regarding aperture and shutter. We can change a mode, of course, by holding down the mode button and using the command dial, and then we go into P mode. Now P is again another program mode, but with a difference. I don't know if we can see that. By turning the dial, we cycle through a series of letters and numbers, 1, 2, 3, tele, and basically this is a program mode, but dependent on the lens that you fit. Basically read the manual. I can't, the scope of this video won't cover all those, but basically it's a program mode for lenses. Whatever lens you choose to put on the camera, you can choose a particular program mode. I think that's a reasonable explanation without going too much detail. So coming back to the mode dial button rather, we then go through the usual suspects: bulb mode, shutter priority, aperture priority, and that's it. I did discover when using aperture priority, I can take the lens off the green dial, and I can manually choose my aperture, and then you notice there's a little M in the window there. I don't know if you can see that, an M, showing that I'm taking full control. Otherwise, if I put it back on green, it disappears, and then to select an aperture, I just use the command dial. I presume that's true with the, yes, that's really, yes, that would be it. Sorry, I got carried away there. We have, if we press the mode dial and the metering mode button together, we can choose multiple exposures. And then our metering mode, we can choose from what I would call center weighted, spot, and matrix. We can choose from single release, high release, which I think is about 3 or 4 shutter actuations per second, low, and we have a self timer of 2 seconds and 10 seconds. Okay, we have a spot metering button here, which we can use. If we have matrix metering, which I've got here, we can change it to spot metering. And then what we can do actually is a nice little feature here, is we can shadow protection and highlight protection. So basically if we press that button and point it into an area of our image that we're taking of shadows, then by pressing this button we can actually add an exposure compensation effectively that will brighten up the scene so that the highlights aren't completely blown, but it preserves the shadows. That's how I think it works, but I am happy to be corrected. There is also a highlight button which does exactly the same but for the highlights, and then a button which I can't remember the name of. It's basically a preview button, but I will just check that. Yes, just having checked the manual, yes, it is indeed a preview button, so I'm correct there. Excellent. Okay, shutter button. We have the dreaded EE. Now that's a problem that is encountered by a lot of Canon T90 users. It makes the shutter not usable. I have found with this particular camera, if I just take the battery out and put it back in again, it seems to clear it. So obviously it is a problem, sadly, with the T90. There's apparently a gasket that deposits itself on the shutter, makes the shutter not work. The camera goes, oh, I can't use it properly, and throws up the EE message. So the only way to remove that is to keep using the camera. So that's a hardship, but one that I'm willing to take on. So that is a very, very quick overview of those. There are more functions in this little door here. With the finder, that's the viewfinder, we have a full range of information, shutter speed and aperture. We can also include no information by turning it to the 0 position, or we can put it into the middle position, which then shows the full range. There is a little grid along here that shows the exposure, and in certain programs the camera will choose a sort of up, one above, one below, and it will average out that exposure. Again, that's how I think it works, but I'm happy to be corrected. What else have we got? A mid-roll rewind and our release, continuous or single release, and self-timer. So there we go. That's a very brief overview. Forgot that. That is a cable release, I believe. Or it could be, yes, it's a cable release. There we go. So, I'm sorry if I've gushed, but I'm so pleased to have the camera, and let's hopefully see if the images are any good at the end of the video. But that has been camera number 275 of 365.